What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be comparing the combat knife, the katana, as well as the nunchucks in Infinite Warfare. A lot of you guys are going to be very surprised to see some of these results. It turns out the descriptions for some of these are completely wrong. Let's get into it. Alright guys, let's kick it off with the ranges of these melee weapons, because this is one of the most important stats with a melee weapon. How far away can you kill enemy players? With a combat knife, it's a standard 3 meters. This is the maximum distance that you're able to kill somebody with a combat knife, which is actually pretty decently far, but at the same time I haven't really heard too many complaints throughout the life cycle of this game. As for the nunchucks, if you read the description of the nunchucks, there's no indication that it has a greater range than the combat knife, and when we do our tests once again, you can see it's exactly the same range, as a lot of us would expect. With the katana, on the other hand, if you read the description, it says that you slice and dice opponents at an extended range. When we look at the testing for this one as well, even though our foot positioning is a little bit different, if you look at where the center of the enemy's body is, it's exactly the same range as the combat knife and the nunchucks. I tested this several times and we were very careful, very precise with our movements with it. It is literally exactly the same range as the other melee weapons. So the description for the katana is completely false. Now for those that are wondering, I thought I'd also throw the axe in here. I know the axe is kind of old news at this point, but we had it available, so I thought why not, let's just test that. And just in case you're wondering, it is also exactly the same melee range. The next really important aspect of melee that I wanted to have a look at here is the width of your melee range. So this isn't how far you are away from your target, it's how precise you have to be looking at your target. Because with a lot of melee weapons, you can actually be aiming a little bit off target, a little bit off center, and it will still lock on and get that kill for you. Now keep in mind with these tests, I was standing in the exact same position and so was my target. I made sure I kept those things consistent because otherwise this test wouldn't really make sense. But as you can see with the combat knife, you can be a little bit off target and it will still lock on and get that kill. For the nunchucks, in their description, this is the area where it's supposed to stand out. It says, pulverize enemies with this melee weapon that acquires targets in a wider range. So, having a look at my test with the nunchucks, it appears this actually is true. You can see the difference in angle right here. On the left we have the combat knife, on the right we have the nunchucks. You don't have to be quite as precise with the nunchucks in order to get a kill on an enemy. As for the katana, there's nothing in the description that suggests that it has a wider range like the nunchucks do, and this one does hold true. It appears to be exactly the same as the combat knife as far as the width of your range. So one last test that I did with the melee weapons that's also quite important to note is how fast do they recover? How quickly can you kill 2 consecutive enemies? Because there is a little bit of a recovery time between each use. What I did with this test is I went into a custom game against bots and I made sure that I was knifing bots that were standing right next to each other and I was spamming that melee button as fast as possible, and I also made sure that there wasn't any distance that I had to cover in order to knife each consecutive enemy. I also did these tests multiple times with each one of these melee weapons just to make sure I had my consistent numbers, and they were consistent every single time that I did this correctly. The absolute minimum time between the first and second kill with the combat knife is consistently 1.301 seconds. So with the knife, if you have 2 enemies, it's going to take you 1.3 seconds between each kill. With the nunchucks, on the other hand, it's actually much faster. You can kill 2 enemies within the span of 0.6 seconds. That's more than double the speed of the combat knife. As for the katana, I was actually quite surprised. This is also significantly faster than the combat knife at 0.7 seconds. So it's a little bit slower than the nunchucks, but it's still way faster than the combat knife. So it's pretty clear in this area that these 2 new melee weapons are far superior to the combat knife, and this is actually the biggest area where they are better than the combat knife. Aside from that, the katana actually doesn't have the extended range that a lot of people thought it did, because that's what the description says it does. And we do get a slight bonus using the nunchucks, but as you can see overall, if we're comparing these 3 together, objectively, the nunchucks are superior to the other 2 melee weapons. They have the exact same maximum melee range, but they can attack at a wider melee range, so you don't have to be quite as precise. Plus, they attack significantly faster than the combat knife, and a little bit faster than the katana. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's video. I'd like to know in the comment section below, did these results surprise you? Did you actually think that the katana was getting a longer range? Or did you think that something else is going to be going on with these tests? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.